Good morning, you're listening to Drinking Socially, the official Untappd podcast.
Your weekly look into what's happening in the Untappd community and the world of beer. This episode is brought to you by Untappd, the Untappd store. Use the coupon code PODCAST to get 20% off your next purchase. That's store.untappd.com, and the coupon code is PODCAST.
I'm John, and first, I just wanted to say thanks for listening. This episode is going to be different. We're still going to be Jon and Harrison and talk about beer and even sometimes candy, but in this episode, we're not even going to drink a beer. This episode features something like a beer in that you can find it in bottles and cans in your grocery store. You can drink enough of it to celebrate your favorite sports team or a day off of work, and it's mostly full of bubbles as well. You can enjoy it thoroughly in any season, but it's always fresher in certain areas of the world. But don't worry, even if you can't find any, it's pretty easy to make at home, at least easier than pie. Harrison, what are we drinking today?
John, I know, right? Let's not keep the people waiting any longer. We're going to be enjoying Blood Amulet from Bee Nektar, and this is one of their ciders, actually. They're known for Bee Nektar meadery for their mead, of course, but this is a cider, and I am super stoked to check it out for many reasons. But let's get some quick objective facts about it first before we dump our subjectiveness all over it. So Blood Amulet, it's classified as a cider, a hard cider, actually, obviously. 6.2% alcohol, fresh pressed Michigan cider with raspberry and cranberry added. So it's got some extra fruit in here. So not just apples doing all the work, but a fair amount of raspberries and cranberries too. So it's going to pop the top here. John's already in. Looking good. It's a beautiful color from what I just saw you pour, and I'm going to drop mine in as well.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I knew it. I know. We're excited to kind of take the plunge here and do something different. So let's just... All right, okay, you got your first sip. Go ahead.
Dude, why have we waited so long?
Ooh.
This is... It smelled... The first thing I thought of, honestly, when I smelled it was church wine.
Right.
As a grew up Catholic, and it took me right back to like my first communion. But the taste... Dude, this begs for you to be drinking it at your Thanksgiving feast. Or, I mean, the cranberries there, I get a little bit of, you said they put raspberry in it?
Correct, yeah, raspberry as well.
Didn't expect it to be red. Obviously, cranberry and raspberry, that makes sense now.
Right.
But, oh my, like, the taste just made me smile. This tastes I expected something like Angry Orchard, and there's stories going on in this bottle. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I love that. That's kind of right. The first sniff actually I got, it shot me right back to Dogfish Head's Fort. The first time I had that, which is like that's like a 12 or 11 or really boozy, like raspberry strong. I don't know. It's a crazy beer. I had it at the brew pub a long time ago. Amazing though, but it's just like all raspberry in the nose. It was like raspberry jumped out at me right away. Yep, I got kind of some of that the church wine happening as well. And then, yeah, like it's almost what I didn't taste that got me really excited. This is not like sweet or overly sweet. Like that's the one thing that you know, a common knock maybe you hear on ciders, or maybe you think yourself like, I don't want to drink apple juice. That's too sweet for me. Get your hands on some of this because there's obviously it tastes like you're drinking just like a raspberry apple thing, like not a juice. Juice kind of does it a disservice, I think. It's such a nice dry finish while still being fruity. This is great. Yeah, right. Like as you said, pass the turkey, give me the mashed potatoes, put the game on. Like, and this is see you later. This is a treat.
I've never turned my nose up to cider, but I think I always just get more excited about, give me a raspberry cranberry IPA. You got my attention.
Right.
But drinking this, man, there's nothing. This is great. Maybe it's love at first sip.
I think so. I think it's happening to both of us. This is fun. Absolutely. And obviously want to pull the BJCP in here and
Yeah,
get
definitely.
some takes from them. So on their style guideline, ciders come in. This one will come in as C2. It's a specialty cider and perry made with other fruit. And kind of right off the bat, this is not from the BJCP, but just from kind of us giving you the highs and the lows here. So beer can have apples in it, no problem there. But cider can't have any grain or malt. This has to be, just fruit on fruit all the way through. And this in particular obviously is not just apples, so it comes under this C2 category of a specialty cider. It's got some other fruit happening in here with the raspberries and the cranberries.
As soon as you said that cider can't have grain, I'm pretty sure your dog was like, "No!" That was the greatest soundbite ever.
It's that time of the night again when they're right. I just fed them, and yet still, maybe they want dessert or something. Maybe they want some cider. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, they sound like walruses when the sun goes down. So back to the cider. So from the BJCP kind of overall impression for this style, it's kind of like a white wine with complex flavors. Getting that. Apple character must marry with the added fruit so that neither one dominates the other. That's kind of like their high level. And again, I mean, anytime any category where there's beer, cider, mead, where it's kind of like cider with fruit, you're entering like a broadness here where like obviously blueberries are going to have a different flavor profile than raspberries. And that's to be expected. So they do, as they always do, a great job of kind of just painting high level what should happen. Apples should be present, so should the other fruit. They should all work together. And that's, even though, as we kind of both said, I definitely raspberry grabbed me first. I know I'm not drinking a raspberry drink. Like I know this is a cider from just kind of that dry appley finish. And it is almost, that's how they marry together. For me, it starts raspberry and goes, and maybe cranberry bit in there, and goes right, that like tartness of the cranberry, and goes right into an appley dry finish, which is great. So right on track with the BJCP are saying about this thing. This is awesome. Here we go.
One thing I noticed when you were taking me through the BJCP, I know this doesn't happen on every beer or cider. As a diabetic, I would love it if it did, though. They write on the label.
Yes, I saw that.
If you watch us on YouTube, right on the label, they list the nutrition facts, like how many carbohydrates, how many calories. It's not something I want to see in the beers that I drink. Certainly not in any of the stouts. But it's nice to see that and kind of get your head around what you're ingesting.
Yeah, and again, most ciders, in fact, it should be pretty much all of them by default are gluten-free too. So, we saw a couple years ago, working at Untappd, this huge influx in kind of cideries opening.
Yeah.
A lot of the people became more gluten conscious, and that was a real issue for a lot of people. Ciders kind of sprung up, and really, it's easy to say we're in like the heyday of beer, but we're easily in the heyday of cider right now as well. With places like Nektar and others cranking out amazing stuff. It's easy to see why people could return to this again and again. And now I just feel like, I feel like I just want to drink everything they have, and because it's so well made too. That's the one thing. You can have a good anything, a good cheeseburger or a good pizza or a good cider, and it can be just good in the end of it, but then sometimes you have one where it's so good, you're like, wow, what do these guys, what else do they do? Tell me more. I'm bought in from sip number one, because you assume, and as I am right now, and you can see it on Untappd, that like everything else they're doing is also amazing. And so, great. Show me more. I'm hooked. You got me in. I'm ready to party with the Bee Nektar guys and see what they got.
First Bee Nektar I ever drank, I was hooked. I wanted everything they made. I found them after drinking Sam Adams' Honey Queen, which was a braggot that they made. And I remember saying, to who I don't remember, but why aren't there more of these?
Right.
It was like 7 or 8%. A couple of Untappd data points about ciders. Harrison was kind of alluding to, especially around I don't want to say like around the time everyone was making an effort to look, is there gluten in this? But certainly there was a time when people that I remember in retail sales, people were asking, what do you have that's gluten free? And cider was always an easy, you don't have to worry about this at all. Because sometimes a gluten free beer, especially early on,
Right.
5 years ago,
Right.
they weren't tasting all that great.
Right. Use sorghum grass or whatever. Yeah, kind of goofy things that, maybe shouldn't be in beer. But yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And you could get something from bee nectar that is incredibly craftfully made. This would rival, I would put this up against some of the best beers I've had.
Yep.
For this particular cider on Untappd, just over 1,000 check-ins. So not incredibly popular, but bee nectar has over 350,000.
Wow.
So they're doing great. Again, a lot of meads with great cider as well. And ciders themselves, they don't get a lot of love on Untappd, but mainly just because there's not very many of them.
Right.
This one in particular rates, it's over 4 stars or 4 bottle caps on Untappd. And you'll often see cideries, I think, more than breweries for sure, are location influenced. For instance, apples are a huge part of making cider.
Right, exactly.
And then you'll see those regions kind of affect the final product as well. Like a cider from France is going to be more like a champagne, not just because they're from France, but in France, they'll stop the fermentation before all the sugar is gone. So you'll get something a little more sweet.
Yeah.
Whereas an English cider, incredibly well, probably the English do ciders better or more prolific than anyone else. And there you can find like smoky or grassy flavors because they'll age it in different woods and they'll let it kind of wild ferment. And then you can go to Spain. Spanish cider, almost, this isn't meant as a knock, a good Spanish cider is going to resemble vinegar. So different takes based on where they're made. And of course, yes, you'll find large cideries like Angry Orchard all over almost every grocery store in the States. So, just be cognizant of that and look for a cidery. If you can find one local to you, or go visit a place like New York or the Pacific Northwest or Russia, which is where I think Russia has the highest concentration of top-rated cideries.
I saw a lot
on Untappd.
Yeah, right, on Untappd.
That surprised me.
All right.
Well, it didn't. Russia crushes. Like Russian craft beer. I've never had a cider from Russia, but apparently they're great. So, hey, Harrison.
Sure.
Hey, how about them apples?
Oh, I thought we'd get through the whole show without a reference to it, but I was wrong. Oh, goodness. Good old Matty D from the south side of Boston. I can't do it. I won't even try.
That's good.
But that was great. I mean, yeah, thank you for running us through all that cool stuff, John, about ciders. And, much like beer, it's, and especially beer now, there is no one cider. When someone says cider, you should ask more questions. Tell me more about it.
Yes.
Get that kind of stereotypical cider out of your head, because clearly there's a lot more going on here than just kind of some hard apple drink. This is very complex and exciting, and I'm pumped we're enjoying it today. Wonderful. All right, so for this week's Rapid Fire, we're going to have a little fun, as we usually do. Although instead of candy bars or cartoons, John and I are going to walk a mile or maybe drink a beer in other people's shoes, namely famous people in history, and kind of try and guess based on what we may know or kind of know or have once heard about these people, kind of extrapolate what they might have consumed back in the day. So stick with us. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll uncover some gems. Maybe we'll learn that you and, the first man to walk on the moon shared some similar beer traits, perhaps.
This is great. I'm excited, Harrison. Who do you got? Who's on deck? Well,
I'm going to start, as we're drinking ciders this evening from a meadery, I'm going to start with Eric the Red. So if you don't know who Eric the Red is, he was a pretty famous explorer, a Viking, around like 900, I think, now a couple thousand years ago, but around like 900 BC, I think. or maybe AD. But anyway, got kicked out of Norway, founded Greenland essentially. And as we all know, Vikings are known for mead. And the cool story, one of the first stories I ever heard about beer or about fermented beverages was kind of how Vikings used to do it and how mead really came to be. The way the story goes is that essentially you'd have like a spoon that was a magical spoon some tribe member would have that would stir a large pot of honey and water that was boiling. And at the end of stirring it, they'd put the spoon in the corner, still covered in honey. A bunch of yeast would fly to it. Wild yeast we're talking about here because the honey was on it. Start eating it, and they'd take that spoon back the next day and re-stir the pot. You would kind of stir like the mead every day for a while you were making it. And unknown to, of course, the Vikings at the time, they were introducing yeast into that kind of honey mixture and making it ferment. They had no idea what was going on, so it was kind of magic spoon, pray to the spoon gods, whatever. Excellent. So, but that's kind of how we think mead came to be through various research from people smarter than I. But that being said, I think mead is the obvious answer for Eric the Red. Maybe he had a red one, kind of like the cider we have tonight, named after him. Who knows? That might be too hard to tell. But yeah, when thinking about kind of pioneers in the world, Eric the Red jumps right up, and yeah, definitely would be a mead drinker. Probably out of a huge horn, celebrating a victory on the battlefield or whatever. But that's what I'm seeing first, John.
That story about mead is incredible. I would have loved to see, I mean, like stir the mead, put the spoon in the corner, bring the mead back. How many failures in this experiment happened? Anyway,
how many accidents? Exactly, right? What the first guy that did it? What did he think? Who knows?
He was
just lazy, right? What do you got, John?
So, also back in time, but not nearly as far back, Charles Darwin.
Okay.
Naturalist, maybe the father of evolution. You could probably, find a whole bunch of anecdotes about him. But Darwin, I think, is a great example. This is a cider drinker. And mainly the reason I'm putting it over here is because similarly, right, like cider, I would imagine early on kind of appeared magically from these old mashed up apples that were sitting in a barrel. Exactly. And then all of a sudden you got thirsty, so you drank it and you felt great. And Darwin probably looked at that and said, this isn't magic. Something's happening here. And I guess now my point is that cider is the origin point for his papers on evolution. You heard it here first.
Boom. It inspired him. It was his muse, perhaps.
Yes.
Interesting. All right. I could dig on that, John. I mean, yeah, Darwin knew a lot of stuff. I'm a big fan of his awards that come out every year, the Darwin Awards. A lot of people forgetting their cats in their dishwasher, if I remember correctly, and that caused a lot of electrical problems. So check on your cat. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your cats are? I'm going to jump around a little bit in history and go to the one and only Ben Franklin, Philadelphia's own, and try and extrapolate what he may have consumed. Oh, wait, I don't need to guess. We know. Ben liked writing things down. He actually shared a recipe for one of his beers. He brewed a couple with the world, and Yard's Brewing Company in Philadelphia has made it. So they make Poor Richard's Spruce Ale, which is based off of one of Ben Franklin's recipes. And along with barley, as you would expect, there's also molasses used and spruce. A locally sourced organic brewed spruce is what Yards puts in their version of this beer. But yeah, Ben Franklin was an amber ale fan, it sounds like, just making kind of beer in his basement like many of us do today. So hats off to you, Ben. If you ever brewed a beer yourself, you and Ben Franklin have something in common. But I thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, no guessing needed. Poor Richard Spruce Ale. If you're ever in Philly, check that thing out.
You can actually drink it. And if you use electricity to brew your beer, you're more like Ben Franklin than it's almost... Anyways.
Right. I see what you did there.
So next, we're jumping all over, but I had to talk about Elvis Presley.
Yep.
Mainly because my barber is a huge fan of Elvis Presley, bordering on obsessive. But Elvis, this is easy. He's drinking beer, and the reason that was easy is because, like, not for the science of beer or anything, but just What do you think of when you think of Elvis? Hips, rock and roll, some music maybe, stories about army stuff. No, peanut butter, banana sandwiches.
Yes.
That's what you think of. And specifically two breweries, Tamaka in Port Orange, Florida, and Omnipollo out of Sweden, who are amazing, made beers for Elvis. You can find peanut butter banana sandwich beer.
Love it.
The Tamaka out of Florida did a brown ale, and Omnipollo did what they do. I'm pretty sure they actually put bacon inside of that one.
Surprised. That sounds delicious, and right, I can feel the meat sweats from me just talking about it, John. That's part of the experience. All right, I'm going to go a little bit out of this world on this next one and talk about the one and only Buzz Aldrin.
Moon Man.
That's right, one of the first ones to walk on the moon. What a title indeed. Now, you may think that I'm going to jump right to Tang, like a Tang-inspired beer. You'd be wrong. I guess Buzz was not a fan of Tang at all, even though it was up there in the space ship with those guys in the Apollo 11 mission. But what he was a fan of was wine. I guess he actually had a little bag of wine up there with him that he drank on the dark side of the moon so that NASA, no one could see him enjoying it. Google it. But apparently it's true. I read it on the internet.
There we go.
So with that in mind, not a Tang fan, enjoys a little bit of space wine. I'm thinking like Braggot, something like Dogfish Head's Midas Touch. The base beer of that is a Braggot. So yeah, or pick your favorite Braggot. But that would be where I get Buzz feeling weightless and happy and dancing in his loafers from the first sip. Yeah, Braggott's an easy one for Buzz. Although maybe he also dislikes light lagers because he was, doing this in the 60s, and that was kind of the, who do you want, Schlitz or do you want Schmitz? That was kind of the world we all lived in. But I like to think perhaps maybe he's enjoyed a Braggot since his time on this Earth or any planet. He's been here. But that was my take on Buzz. What are you thinking for the last one here, John? Yeah. This one looks good.
Last one for me. So Johnny Appleseed. Maybe, I don't know, less prolific than the previous five we've talked about, but we're drinking cider, and he's maybe the most famous tree grower in United States history. There's probably a better word for it. Nursery man, botanist.
That's different.
I don't think he was actually a botanist. Anyways.
He just had a hole in his sack with seeds that were spilling all over the ground. He was an accidental farmer.
Bad bag maker. Earned the credit for spreading apple trees across northeastern U.S.
It's the bad
and
bag.
So, of course, you think, right, cider. No. Here's the catch. This is the M. Night Shyamalan.
I love it.
Johnny Appleseed is a mead drinker because without bees, he's not historic at all. He's just a bad bag.
He's a bad guy, right?
We should get a mead on the podcast soon.
I think we need
Johnny
to now.
Appleseed is drinking mead because he is so in love with all the work that the bees did to make him famous.
I love it. That's right. It's all about the bees. You could say the bees are the yeast of the world.
Ooh.
Right?
You can say that.
We wouldn't be here without them.
That's
just
like
Nektar
if you're listening.
Here. Right.
Bees are the yeast of the world. T-shirt idea.
Yeah, I got it. Patent pending. Call me for it. That one's on the house. We'll work something out. But this is great. Wow, I learned a lot. Maybe. I certainly laughed a bit. This cider's going down smooth, too.
Yeah, it's working.
Man, this is great. It's so light, man.
I didn't even look. This is a relatively abnormal bottle. Okay, not abnormal bottle, but 500 milliliters. It's not something I see often.
Perfect.
And so let's talk about, Harry, what's going on this weekend, like this coming weekend, April. Here we are, October 24th.
That's it. That's the one. Yeah. It's huge. I mean, this is it. Guys, 10 years of Untappd. We're doing it. We're about to get wild online, virtually, do some crazy things. We have a ton of fun stuff lined up for you guys. And as you probably saw, if you're following Untappd on social media, across the 100 brewery landmark line we're all working towards. 100 different breweries are brewing. I remember my first check-in, which is so cool. So if you haven't jumped into that site yet, and seeing which one near you is making it, please do. You can get your hands on some for the festivities this weekend. But yeah, over 100 different breweries are participating in this, which is it's wild. And not just in the U.S., all over the place. Russia, I saw some. I think AF Brew is doing it, which is pretty wild. Those guys are no joke.
Yep.
So it's don't count yourself out if you're not in the States. This is kind of happening all over.
Yeah, I can't. I wish it's my fault that I don't know how many countries are participating, but you would be hard pressed. It seems like mostly smaller breweries are making a version of this beer, which will be local fruit sour, like a kettle sour.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, and we encourage them to use local ingredients, which is great too.
And you can. There was a badge contest where even still today, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, you can vote for the badge that was drawn by anybody who likes Untappd got to draw a badge. We narrowed it down to the top 5, and if you check in during the 10th anniversary event on October 24th, you can earn that badge. Yeah. And you can see me and Harrison travel through time due to the magic of Greg's time travel app and some creative video editing. We're going to be going back to talk about the previous 10 years of Untappd. And Greg is bringing on a panel, and Greg's going to be, later on in the day, Greg's going to be talking about the next 10 years of beer.
That's right. A whole panel talking about that, a whole panel of people talking about John and I are going to look at what's happened the past 10 years. Greg's going to talk to some industry experts about the future, the next decade of beer, which is always fun to extrapolate. I wonder how many times they're going to say lagers. Lagers are coming back, because as we've told you and said many times, that's what everyone's been saying for
eventually
ever. But I guess they're kind of here. I don't know. But it's not just going to be about beer. I mean, we're going to have some other kind of fun things going on. What are some of the other stuff we have lined up, John, that we can reveal?
Yeah. So here's literally how I wrote this, because I love it. Harrison, are you hungry?
I always.
I've been hungry since 1993, and I'm pretty sure it's actually 1987. I don't remember not being hungry, not because I'm starving, just because I love food.
True.
And Mandy, who helped us out with the 100,000 IBU pyramid game show, where you got to see Harrison say "Fuggles" multiple times.
Right, I guess I did.
Mandy is going to be on with Greg later in the day as well. You can check out the segments on our website, but Mandy's going to be talking about some recipes from her blog. I believe I heard brownies are going to be involved. And Mandy is a national homebrew gold medalist. So don't miss that segment. Food, an amazing brewer, and I mean, Mandy's traveled. She's incredible. I can't wait to watch that one. Anything else, Harrison, you're excited about?
And then, cocktails, right? But not just any old cocktail. Greg's going to feature some beverage consultants. They walk through kind of taking your beer up a notch and do some beer cocktails. Get ready to wow your friends, roommates, relatives, whoever you happen to see on Thanksgiving with some sweet beer cocktails. You're not going to miss that. It's definitely something to take home. Or just do live, like John and I probably will. Be enjoying those cocktails in real time. It is Saturday after all. But yeah, there's lots of fun stuff lined up. It's sure to be a really cool day. It starts at 6 Eastern, I believe. 3 Eastern? Is that right?
3 Eastern sounds right.
That's right. 3 to 6-ish or so. We'll see.
It's a party.
Yeah, it's a party. Come all. You don't need to get tickets or anything. Where are the ticket links, Harrison and John? How can I get... Nope, no tickets. You don't need to do that. You can watch it.
It's literally all you have to do is just click on the link and have the computer. I believe those are the only, or even a cell phone.
Or your phone, yeah, right, exactly. So if you're listening to this podcast right now, chances are you can also have the technology to enjoy the 10th anniversary festival party. It's going to be great. We're super excited about it. Everyone at Untappd's running around like crazy to get stuff lined up to have a lot of fun with you guys this weekend. So we'll look forward to seeing you then.
And you are right, Harrison. This weekend, October 24th, 3 to 6 p.m. New York time.
All right. Perfect. New York, USA. Got it.
This has been great. I'm going to keep sipping on this cider, Harrison. What do we got coming up next week?
Grab your monster beer, everybody. What? Monster beer? What are you talking about? You know what I'm talking about. Or it's a beer that reminds you of a monster. I'm not talking about huge beer. It's just a beer with a monster on it or named after one or whatever. This is kind of a broad category. We're going to explore it together. It'll be almost Halloween. So we're going to be enjoying Bat Squatch from Rogue Brewing Company, which has quite the story behind it, which I will regale you all with maybe. Or maybe I'll just stumble through it and we'll make our own story about the Bat Squatch. We'll see what happens. And yeah, if you can guess what my favorite Halloween movie is, you win 5 imaginary points. And if you're not following us at That Beer Podcast on Twitter yet, please do. John has been throwing out some great stuff. A lot of things having to do with the candy bar episode last week. That was a lot of fun to see everybody engaging with that, the candy bar and beer pairing episode. But we kind of try to keep it fun there and put some stuff there that we don't put anywhere else. So if you're not checking us out on Twitter, at That Beer Podcast, we'll get you all you need to know.
Otherwise, the show notes for this episode are going to be available at podcast.untappd.com. This episode and all of our episodes are brought to you by Untappd. If you want to grab some of this sweet 10-year anniversary gear, check out store.untappd.com and then use the coupon code podcast. That'll save you 20% off. If you have any questions or feedback, you want us to talk about cider more, you want Harrison to regale you with the Bat Squatch story, send us a message. You can connect with Untappd on Twitter, Facebook, everywhere. Other than that, really excited to see you guys this weekend and next week.
Exactly right. We'll see you then, guys. Cheers. There it is. Always.
Yeah. Right for it.